In this literary device video, I'll be explaining symbolism. So first, I want you to take a look at the images from the Star Wars movies. Different characters, and I just want you to think what stands out to you, what can you kind of notice? Well, if you're like me, you probably saw colour and the contrast in colour, particularly with the clothes they wear. Now, as you might see, a lot of the sort of evil characters, Darth Vader, Kylo Ren, Anakin in the later movies, they're all wearing black clothes, whereas Luke Skywalker, Rey, and a young Anakin are wearing light-coloured clothes. Now, this is symbolic of if they're evil or good characters. It's an easy way to explain where they sort of fit on that spectrum. So what is symbolism? Well, symbolism is essentially taking a really abstract idea and using concrete objects, people, the setting, whatever, colours, to try and convey that abstract idea. Now, if that sounds a little complex, let's look at some examples. So, peace, a very abstract idea, can be sometimes difficult to explain, can be symbolised with a white dove. Evil, as with Star Wars for instance, can often be explained with colour. A lot of evil characters often wear dark colours. Love can often be symbolised with red flowers, red roses for instance. And sadness can be symbolised with rain. Now, all of these pictures, the abstract ideas, be it peace, evil, love, and sadness, are abstract ideas. You cannot touch them. You can't hold them in your hand. You can't hold peace, you can't hold evil, you can't hold love or sadness. But you can physically touch or physically see a dove, something black, a red rose, or rain. Therefore, symbolism is an easy way to use something literal, something real, something concrete, to explain something abstract. So why use it? Well, let's take the Star Wars example. In the first movie, we have young Anakin Skywalker. Now, he wears a dusty white jacket. He lives on a sandy planet, so it's a dusty white jacket. And as we go into the second movie, he begins wearing this white overall still. He starts off the second movie as a good character, but he slowly moves across to the dark side. He becomes more evil. And by the time we get to the third movie, he's wearing all black. Now, instead of an author or a director using really boring, obvious exposition like, oh, by the way, he's good now, by the way, he's bad now, they can just use something symbolic to show this change. Let's take an example of love. So we've got two characters in a novel, and they go on a first date. The man gives the woman a red rose that's about to bloom. Now, this symbolises that they're falling in love, they like each other, it's this initial thing, right? And as their relationship grows, the flower blooms even more and becomes more beautiful, okay? The love is blossoming, the love is blooming. When the couple start arguing, perhaps the flower starts to wilt or dies. Now, instead of an author simply just explaining, okay, they're falling in love, their love's getting better, their love is fading, they can use the symbol instead to convey this idea. It's a lot more interesting than just writing exactly what is happening. It allows the reader to investigate a little bit more and take away their own sort of meaning. Let's look at one more example from one of my favourite movies, The Lion King. So we start off at the beginning of Pride Rock, the setting, right? It's a beautiful place, it's green, all the animals live there together in harmony, it's pretty cool. Then Scar eventually becomes king, and there's drought and famine in Pride Rock. Now you can see the symbolism here. Nothing grows, the trees are bare, but also the sky is very dark. So what's symbolic about that? Well, it's obviously not a pleasant time to live in. He's a poor ruler. Things are pretty evil, pretty dark, metaphorically, figuratively, and concretely or literally. After Simba returns to defeat Scar, I hope you've all watched the movie so you understand the context. After Simba returns to defeat Scar, it immediately begins to rain. Now this washes away all that is dark and evil. It washes away skeletons, which themselves can be symbolic of death. So the rain washes away this death. And the heavens immediately open up, the sun comes out, everything kind of returns back to normal. And at the end of the movie, it starts with kind of almost identical frames where it's nice and green, picturesque, all the animals are together living in harmony. So the setting in itself becomes symbolic of the tone and how the ruler is ruling the land. And it also develops a theme. Now, one of the big themes in The Lion King is the circle of life, everything in its place and coming full circle. So symbolism is also a great way to not only convey tone, not only convey the plot, i.e., the dark tone, the dark setting, the dark colours, the fact there's no leaves on the tree, convey that it's a dark tone, but also convey that the Scar is ruling really badly, which is about characters and plot. It also helps to develop themes. So let's see a famous example from literature and see how the symbols develop a theme. Now, this is Lord of the Flies by William Golding, a fantastic book many of you will read in high school. And it is about a group of British school children who are evacuated because of a threat of World War III and a nuclear bomb on England. When they're evacuated, there's a man at the airport blowing a trumpet. He is an authority figure. He's a grown-up, and he's presumably in the military leading people. He's authority, and he has this trumpet. Now, the plane crashes on a desert island. All the adults die on the plane, so it's just the school children trapped on this island. And the main character comes across a conch. His name's Ralph. He comes across a conch shell, looks like this. And he blows it, and it makes a sound. Let's look at some quotes. In colour, the shell was deep cream, touched here and there with fading pink. So it's this colourful shell with deep colours. And they decide that they'll have a vote, and someone says, let him be chief with the trumpet thing. So Ralph, who has it, he blows this conch, and they all decide to have a vote who's going to be the leader. And one child says, let the one who blew it, let Ralph, who blew the conch, be the leader. And they refer to it as a trumpet thing, which reminds readers of the adult authority when they're being evacuated with a trumpet. And then someone says, we can't have everybody talking at once. We'll have to have hands up like a school. I'll give them the conch, and the conch is the next person to speak who has it. Whoever's holding the conch can speak. Now, in the early chapter 1, the author, William Golding, sets up the conch as a symbol for civilized democracy. It's used as a tool to speak. Whoever holds the conch gets to speak. They have a vote. They vote for the person who blew the conch. So the conch starts to symbolize civilization and democracy. And at the beginning of the book, the boys are quite civilized. They play around. They have votes. They live like this, where whoever has the conch gets to speak. But things do start to change, and democracy starts to disappear. One character says, we don't need the conch anymore. We know who ought to say things. It's time some people knew they've got to keep quiet and leave deciding things to the rest of us. So we can see democracy beginning to backslide here. This is later on in the novel. Also, exposure to the air had bleached the yellow and pink to near white and transparency. So it's losing its colour and therefore losing its effect. Democracy is losing its power. And then eventually the rock struck Piggy, one of the characters, a glancing blow from the chin to knee, and the conch exploded into 1,000 white fragments and ceased to exist. The conch disappears, and therefore complete democracy and civilization has disappeared. We can see how this develops a theme of civilization versus savagery. And we can see how the plot changes over time, how the boys start very democratic and civilized and end very savage. And we can see what it says a lot more about the characters as well, how some characters are just ignoring the conch and ignoring democracy. So symbols are a really, really good tool in literature to tell us a lot more about these abstract ideas. For instance, in the case of Lord of the Flies, democracy and civilization, power and savagery. Thanks for watching.